Many people say that you should prioritize your mental health above all else. And it's a beguilingly simple dictum. Whatever it is you aspire to do in life, presumably you can't do it if you're crazy. Whatever it is you want to enjoy in life, presumably you can't enjoy it if your actual ability to think and perceive reality is impaired. And if this impairment is something that it is within your power to cure or solve, then presumably you should first cure or solve it. Makes sense. Seems like such a simple dictum. But what is mental health? I think it's interesting that this sort of slogan, which might suggest that you should be less self-indulgent, ends up being an excuse for being even more self-indulgent. Like, oh well, if you need to drink alcohol to make yourself feel good, then you should drink alcohol for the sake of your mental health. If you need a vacation to make yourself feel good, then you should prioritize the vacation for the sake of your mental health. And we had this discussion about another vegan YouTuber, about Unnatural Vegan. She was taking antidepressant drugs during pregnancy, SSRI drugs, that we know they do damage to the health of the mother. They also do damage to the health of the unborn child. And we got to hear all the excuses from people who said, no, you should prioritize your mental health. Many years ago, I saw the same debates about marijuana and people justifying smoking marijuana during pregnancy. Certainly in Canada, I've heard it about women drinking alcohol during pregnancy. Quote unquote, prioritize your mental health. I think if we were really having a sincere and thoroughgoing discussion of what mental health means, we'd have to say that drinking a neurotoxin like alcohol is not mentally healthy. Feeling that you rely on a poison and intoxication, the brain toxicity achieved by drinking that poison for your mental health, for your equanimity, for your moods, for your self-perceived sanity, can't possibly be healthy. So, to quote Marcus Aurelius once again, we are debating for no ordinary prize. We are debating for whether we are to be sane or insane. I had a year and a half of my life, year and 3 months, in Scotland. Those people back then, maybe Scotland's changed. People tell me Scotland has changed. But, to drink alcohol 4 days a week, is it sane or insane? The Scottish idea of sobriety at that time in Glasgow, Scotland, was alcoholism. The Scottish idea of food and health and diet, it was unbelievable. It was cartoonish. But if you live in a society of alcoholics, if you live in a society where it's reassured and you're told again and again, this is normal and natural and necessary and will make you feel good about yourself, and oh come on, it'll do you good, it'll set you right, it'll help you think clearly, it'll help you calm down. What in that context is mentally healthy? And isn't it in fact a strangely defiant thing you have to do to stand up against that tradition and that cultural context and say, no, I, for my part, am not going to drink alcohol. I'm going to refuse this. Even if I'm the only person who's sober in Glasgow, Scotland, even if everyone perceives me as sick and strange. And I know it may sound like a joke to you guys, but it's not. That's basically my situation with video games even. But I come on the internet and make YouTube videos talking about the importance of not playing video games as an adult. And still to this day, I still get hate mail. I just got more mail today. Some of it's really book length, explaining to me how no, I'm wrong, but how supposedly, and some of them send me statistics that video games, they now are the world's most popular hobby and the world's most popular pastime. Yeah, and probably if you multiply the the number of people playing video games, but the number of hours they spend playing video games. They probably spend more time doing that than any other hobby. Because even people who go skiing, most of them don't spend that much time skiing as the people who. But yeah, I'm the one person who's going to stand up in my culture and say, no, there's a difference between a toy and a tool. And when we're children, we play with toys. And when we're adults, we try to do meaningful things with tools. Obviously, a pencil can be a toy or a tool. It's how you use it. And a computer can be a toy or a tool. It's how you use it. I got this email from a 25-year-old man, and he talks about his political education and his political aspirations and his struggle with autism. He's been diagnosed with autism formally. And, he admits that he's been on SSRI drugs, antidepressants, since the age of 16. And I'll just quote him verbatim here. He says, quote, he is a weekend alcoholic. He can go months without drinking, but he always falls back. He gets very drunk once a week. He uses alcohol as a way to stop thinking. He has a constant narration going on in his head. And then he's drinking alcohol to blot it out. So close quote. If you guys know, I've been sober basically since 19 or 20 or something. I mean, really my drinking was like at around 16, 17. I drank a few times since then, but I quit early. But I can relate to this. I really can. For me, really the only thing that was interesting or rewarding about drinking alcohol was, you could say, the negation of consciousness, was of blotting out and blacking out consciousness. Indeed, the suicide-like quality of drinking and feeling your thoughts stop. And there's no way that can be mentally healthy. Now, he comments, he has a constant narration going on in his head, but it's not always unpleasant, is it? When your life is miserable, when your life is unhappy, when you're dwelling on unhappy things, when you feel the narration in your head is something you have to escape, that's when it's unpleasant. When you're consumed with thoughts of something, a problem you're trying to solve, or history or politics, something you find rewarding, something you find interesting, something you find meaningful, then you don't mind your thoughts being a constant narration. But it's not the narration itself that's the problem, right? It's what's being narrated. So if this guy has been on antidepressant drugs for 9 years, it's very likely he'll have very serious side effects when quitting antidepressants. If he's become emotionally dependent on alcohol, which is what he's describing, he's not an alcoholic in the sense that he needs to drink every day, but he is emotionally dependent on alcohol, then quitting alcohol is going to be very, very hard to do. In some ways, a lot of indications here of positive potential for the future as a political leader in veganism and someone who just cares about law, history, politics, participating in parliament in his country of origin. But this comes back to the first premise of the video. Can you really enjoy anything in life without your mental health? Can you really pursue a goal or accomplish anything in life without your mental health? Now, the problem is, as I've already mentioned, that people define mental health to mean their own self-indulgence. And I will obviate this problem by restating the same slogan in slightly more precise terms. Can you enjoy anything in this life without self-discipline? Can you accomplish your goals in this life without self-discipline? It's really self-discipline we're talking about, and not mental health. And self-discipline, just like mental health in my opinion, is radically and fundamentally incompatible with being dependent on alcohol, with being dependent on antidepressants, especially given what we now know as scientific fact about what their effects are and what they are not. Now, I make this video at a very interesting time in our lives and in my relationship with my girlfriend. Because my girlfriend just went through a brief period in which she convinced herself that she ought to quit all of her medication, that she ought to be able to regenerate her physical health. And you know what? I think keeping it all the way real, part of your optimism about that was your relatively positive experience with reclaiming your own mental health. You can put it that way. Or your own self-discipline. Really? In your case, that's perfect. That's what we really mean. So she's mentioned it on her own YouTube channel. She's discussed this a little bit. But my girlfriend, has a history with antidepressants. She has a history with marijuana specifically. Basically no other drug. Just marijuana. But again, marijuana causes brain damage. Marijuana changes how you feel and how you think. And the type of emotional dependency marijuana produces, it may be invisible to the people who are themselves dependent on it, but it's very real. Since I was a teenager, I've said that marijuana was the most dangerous of drugs because it makes intolerable things tolerable. Even when I was a little teenager, like 15, 16, 17, I saw there'd be people and they hate their job and they hate their roommate. This was Toronto, so everyone had a roommate. No one had their own apartment. Everyone was sharing an apartment. They hate their job, they hate their roommate, they hate their family. Maybe they hate living in Toronto, whatever. And, there's so many things they hate. And they would smoke marijuana every night. And intolerable things became tolerable. And things they wanted to change would have an impetus and a motivation to change that week, that month, that year. Instead went on unchanged for years and years. Melissa had a relatively positive experience getting motivated by my channel and then getting motivated by getting to know me and falling in love with me to really kind of reclaim her self-discipline. I think nobody can define mental health, so who knows? But, certainly taking a step forward that way. And she adapted to living a completely sober lifestyle. And a lifestyle, she's been highly driven, highly motivated to learn new things and to grow as a person, even when there was nothing in particular she was trying to learn or become. That's worth pointing out. You haven't had like a single career ambition or focus, but you have nevertheless been focused in the things you apply yourself to in your life. And, we're lucky because it turns out she's got a talent for the Chinese language, which she's been applying herself to lately. But you know what? Physical health problems, they are beyond the reach, they're beyond the scope of what self-discipline can do for you, right? With self-discipline, you can learn to cope better with autism. And it sounds like this young man, in many ways, he's already way ahead there. He's doing pretty well. But self-discipline can never reverse autism. It can never cure autism. It can just help you cope better. Self-discipline can help you cope with having only one leg. A really simple physical condition. And, Melissa, you've now had the process, unlike your experience quitting SSRIs, unlike your experience quitting antidepressants, your experience quitting marijuana. Melissa's experience quitting drugs that treated her physical health, which she did to some extent with a lot of encouragement and optimism from Nina and Randa, the clear skin diet. The idea that by having it's really about discipline. The idea that by having a more disciplined diet, you were gonna solve these other problems in your life and your body. You've instead had the kind of crushing reminder that no. In some ways we like to say that the mind and the body are one, but the mind is the mind and the body is the body, and there is only so much that self-discipline can do for you physically with medically real conditions. And autism is a medically real condition, whereas depression is not. Even though it may seem the realest thing in the world to you, it may seem all-consuming and overwhelming. Depression is not, and the treatment of depression with SSRIs, as has been discussed at great length on this channel, is not. So look, this guy wrote to me. He's not really asking me any questions. I think he's already got the right questions, and I think he already has the answers even. So, I think the only thing you can really hear from me or want to hear from me is that I sympathize. But he says he's just about to finish the degrees currently enrolled in university. I think you can have absolutely no higher priority than your own sobriety. It's as brutally as honest as that. And he mentions a lot of other things in his life, just people he can't get along with and stuff. Well, if you can't get along with them drunk, you tell me. Maybe you're going to get along with them even worse when you're sober. I think you absolutely have to make your top priority quitting the mind-altering drugs you're currently accustomed to, shall we say. And, there's probably no way to really prepare yourself for the struggle that involves. And you know what? Let's keep it all real. So Melissa, I've been through this with my girlfriend in real time. Part of her struggle with this sobriety, this absolute sobriety, and don't get me wrong, by Western cultural standards, she already was sober. Nobody considered her a drunk or a stoner in her culture. Her own parents had no idea she smoked marijuana. She wasn't perceived as, a stoner, or no one perceived the antidepressant problem. But you know what, Melissa? You know what I've seen with you? Part of your struggle in the last 2 years has just been facing up to what kind of a person you really are, or what kind of a person you really were. I think the drugs you used, even though they're considered soft drugs, made it easier for you to deceive yourself about what kind of person you are. And being really sober all the time, and being self-examining, and having nowhere to run, like you always seeing yourself in the mirror, always knowing who you are and knowing why you did things. You know what you said and what you meant to say, and you didn't quite say that, and what you were feeling, and then reflecting on that, and then afterwards, like if you're a jerk, knowing exactly how and why you're a jerk, and having no refuge from that reality, no refuge from the narration in your mind. That's been really hard for you to deal with. That's been a kind of second coming into adulthood for you in the last couple of years. And I can imagine, for this young man, if he really quits drinking and quits the mind-altering drugs, one of the most sobering experiences of all is recognizing who you really are. But hey, guess what? There's good news. We're all malleable, not infinitely malleable, but malleable. I've had periods in my life where I did math every day, complex math, and you change, you adapt. Now I haven't done math in so many years. It's very slow for me. I had periods in my life where I was thinking in and speaking in Laotian every day. And just yesterday I sat there with the Laotian phrase book in the bookstore and looked at it. Wow, I haven't thought in or spoken that language again. And elements of your character that you exercise or leave in abeyance, you can develop, you can become in appreciable and significant ways a different person. Above all, morally, ethically. That's within your grasp in terms of self-discipline. What you care about and how much you care and how you express that care, those things can change. In many ways, the aesthetics of who you are and what type of person you are, they really can't change. But yeah, if you don't really have the experience of sobriety as an adult, because for him, age 16 to 25, you're in for a series of rude awakenings and probably a struggle both with recognizing who you are and with figuring out what kind of person you aspire to be and how to, day by day, cope with that gap.